What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Lighting a Lamp podcast. I'm here with Steve
Hello.
and Tim,
It's your boy.
and this is going to be our quarter mark podcast. Most of the teams now, well, I shouldn't say most, but some of the teams that have played more games are getting up to the 16 game mark. So, right around the quarter mark of the season. Um, and with the disparity in games played between some of the teams that have had to deal with COVID and some of them that hadn't, we just felt like this was just the best time to go ahead and start doing this. But before we get into the whole thing, because that's going to be the focal point of this episode, just a couple of housekeeping notes, some hockey news. We want to congratulate Miku Koivu on his retirement from the NHL, a Minnesota Wild legend. The guy played countless number of games for them. Wanted to continue his career in Columbus, but he said that he didn't feel like he was playing up to speed. He felt like he wasn't putting out the kind of quality hockey that he wants to put out, and so he wants to leave on his own terms before he ends up being like a healthy scratch and taxi squad and et cetera, et cetera. So
I mean, wasn't he already healthy scratched a couple of times?
yeah, so he played a couple games, and then I guess he kind of saw the writing on the wall after that.
And
Um,
he was going to be a bench warmer or an AHL starter eventually.
right. So he wants to go out on top essentially, and good for him. So want to congratulate him after 16 NHL seasons. And then we would also be remiss if we didn't mention Jocelyn and Monique Lamoureux are also retiring from competitive hockey. The two twins, women's hockey legends for the USA, really. Two silver Olympic medals, a gold in 2018 Pyeongchang, 6 World Championship gold medals, and a silver to go along with that. So, we would really be remiss if we didn't mention really two legends in women's American hockey also hanging up the skates. So, congratulations to those two on a wonderful, fantastic, gold-laden career. 7 gold medals between the world champs and the Olympics that's just like unbelievable. So, want to wish everyone that we just mentioned congratulations on great careers and happy retirement. And a little bit of news coming out of Pittsburgh. Ron Hextall has been named the GM, and Brian Burke has been named president of hockey operations. An interesting time for the Pittsburgh Penguins. I know that, Steve had some interesting, an interesting take on it. Just given the past track records of some of these guys, like, is there anything you guys want to mention? Like a little quick snippet on this hiring for Pittsburgh, what it means for the team, where do you see this going? Any little
Um,
thoughts?
I just think the hiring of Brian Burke specifically is interesting because he's been out of like the hockey, from like the front side of hockey anyway. He's been in the media side for it's got to be what, like 6, 7 years now at least, because he got canned in Calgary around the same, or not, it was about Calgary or Vancouver. I don't remember. It was one of the two. He got canned in
He started his
Western,
career with Vancouver, I
right.
believe.
So I think it was in Calgary then, like in the early 2010s ish after the Maple Leafs, and he got canned.
He was
Um,
relieved. He after 5 years on a job, Burke stepped back from his role as president of the Flames hockey operations in 2018.
okay, it was wow. It was that recently?
I gotta
I
be
felt
honest
like it
with you,
was.
I thought it was a long time ago too. So
All right, so I guess my point's really kind of moot then. Like I thought he'd been out of the hockey a while. All right, never mind. Um, I guess my point still, it's interesting though, just because Brian Burke is so associated with a specific like era of hockey and brand of hockey, but I guess he's been pretty progressive in like his TV appearances and like the way he's talked about like the game evolving. So maybe he's the right guy to bring the Penguins into the next generation. Ron Hextall though, I didn't understand because I felt like there were a lot of qualified candidates. I'm not gonna sit here and say I know who everybody who was on the Penguins list that they interviewed, obviously. That being said though, like Ron Hextall didn't exactly have a great tenure with the Philadelphia Flyers, and he had all the pieces he really needed. He just could never really make them either consistently competitive or competitive enough. So I don't know. I'm interested to see how he handles a rebuilding project or what I guess might be a retooling. This might be a signal that they're looking to compete again with Crosby and Malkin. Who knows? But I'm just interested to see what they do with a long-term rebuild slash retooling project that they're going to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting. You know, Burke, for what it's worth, was really the architect of the trade that bought the Sedins to Vancouver. I mean, he really was the mastermind behind all of that. So, you know, he's clearly got a little bit of savvy in terms of his trading. I mean, he's been a GM since 1998. He knows what the ropes. I mean, he's a
I
Stanley Cup
mean,
champion 2007.
he was dealt a bad hand with the Maple Leafs too. I think like I'd go out on a limb and say he probably like the team he was handed and was told to like make competitive wasn't exactly in a great spot. So, whatever blemishes on his record can probably be explained away pretty well, you know?
Yeah, the Leafs. That's a tough sell, only just because the trade he gets all the flack for is the Phil Kessel trade, right? Because those picks turned into Tyler Seguin, Dougie Hamilton, and Jared Knight, right? But would we still be sitting here giving him flack for the Phil Kessel trade if all those picks turned into guys that are playing in Europe at this point? You know, it just so happens that the picks turned into Tyler Seguin and Dougie Hamilton. And for what it's worth, Kessel had really good years with the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah,
Like,
well,
I
that's
was
what I'm
gonna say,
saying. Like,
or if Kessel like played like the a higher level, we said it was stupid, like not worth it. Even if they didn't win, like at what point does it become worth it? It's just
yeah,
like a
like it's not like he traded for some bum, you know? Like he got Phil Kessel, who was perennially the best player on the Maple Leafs. Like we can't even kid ourselves, you know?
I mean, he only didn't score 30 goals twice. One of those was the lockout shortened season, and the other one was his last season with the Maple Leafs. He hit 30
Which
goals every other season.
and
yeah.
his last
So
year with the Maple Leafs was a dark time in there for them. Like that wasn't a great, you
it's
know?
kind of like Rick Nash, in that sense, and like his in terms of like how his career like panned out.
Yeah, I could see what you're saying.
And I mean, you also got a
They
guy
both
that,
become
like,
fucking wheel and dealing hot dog men. Also, one in the big city, one in fucking Pittsburgh or in fucking Toronto.
I mean, for also what it's worth, I mean, Kessel only missed games his first season with the Maple Leafs, and other than that, he played every single game. I mean, he was an Iron Man for them. So, like, you got a serviceable player. It just, oh, Dougie Hamilton, right? But like Brian Burke didn't know that those picks were going to turn into that. I mean, he was taking a gamble. So I like the hiring of Brian Burke as somebody who has a little bit more experience. Hextall, kind of a big question mark for me. Not really sure what the deal is there, but we'll see. I guess we'll see. Oh, and there was one other thing I did want to talk about. I do. We need to address the situation that happened in Columbus with the review issue, and that was there was a goal scored by the Carolina Hurricanes. That was offside. It was 100% offside. And Columbus challenged it. They sent it up to Toronto. They called them over. They're like, all right, listen, we think this is offside. And allegedly, the story goes that it was sent up, and then a video coordinator with the Columbus Blue Jackets somehow got involved on the call, and the referees heard him say twice, "That's a good goal. That's a good goal." And so they thought that it was Toronto saying that.
Yeah, and they took their headsets off like right away, right? Was the problem.
And so
Like
they
they
were
didn't even
like,
converse with them, right?
all right, Toronto's saying it's a good goal. Guess we're gonna send it, right? And then it turns out not a good goal. Columbus is charged with a penalty. After the period is over, the officials step to John Tortorella and say that was a bad call. It was offside. We can't take the goal off the board. There's no precedent for that. But we're taking the penalty off the board. The issue is, at that point, Columbus had already killed a minute and 20 seconds of the penalty. So my problem with this whole situation is that, listen, human mistakes are going to happen. How did the referees supposed to know that that wasn't Toronto on the other end? You know, like, they just hear a voice telling them it's a good goal. I have an issue with the referees, first of all, just being so willing to just be like, okay, because when you look at the one angle, it's not even close. Like, you can tell at full speed that it's offside,
Well,
right?
it's like you said, like the issue really comes down to like they didn't even look at it. They came over, they put their headsets on, they pulled the iPad up, looked at it, and then that guy said it's a good goal, and they didn't look at it again. They just gave the iPad back, took their headphones off, and like went just attempted like it was a normal, you know? And it was like, what? Like you guys aren't even gonna look at this?
Right. Like the onus is on the refs to look at the play, and you could tell in full speed that it was offsides. Then the onus is on, I mean, the guy being on the line, like he was a trainee apparently. So like again, mistakes are going to happen. I understand that. But that cannot happen in the National Hockey League because it ended up costing them the game because guess what? Columbus lost by 1 goal. So and my other issue with it is they came after the period was over, like they took the penalty off the board, right?
This is where my issue lies. So
and my the problem is though, Columbus essentially effectively lost a minute and 20 worth of hockey because they were killing a penalty they shouldn't have had. So I think that there should have been a precedent say, all right, listen, we're going to start the third period with 21-20 on the board because that minute and 20 essentially Columbus was playing from behind on the PK when they shouldn't have been. So why not give them, if you say, listen, I can't take the goal off the board, I don't have the authority to do that. It's like, all right, I understand that. But then you can give the time back. You have the authority to add time onto the clock.
Well, see, my issue is like losing the time is whatever. My issue really comes down to the goal and the time they lost. It's like they lost. There's no precedent for taking the goal off the board, right? For the referees anyway. But there's no reason that the operations center in Toronto, who's like the official arm of the NHL in these situations, to look at it and say, listen, we don't think like this isn't good. Like this is not a good goal. Like we made a bad call. We got to take this off the board. You know what I mean? But like instead, they were just like, all right, yeah, we fucked up and sorry. So yeah, sorry.
But they
And
didn't
that was
even
it.
just say that. Didn't they take the penalty off the board?
They
Well, yeah,
took
that's
the
the
last
issue.
40 seconds
Like,
of the penalty off the board, but they
this is
didn't
where-
give them back a minute and 20 that
This
they wasted.
is where my issue lies. They either had, in my opinion, they either should have just sold out, said they fucked up, and moved on because it happens. There have been fuck ups before. Either sell out and move on, or like Rob said, fix it. Like you fucked up.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like they should have taken the goal off the board. Like there's
I've time kept a lot of fucking games before, and I've done both. I've literally gone to both coaches and the refs and have said, "Yo, I fucked up, so I'm just gonna put the time back and we'll redo it." And I've also said, "I fucked up. It's too late. I'm sorry." Like you have to just pick one or the other. Like I don't know what they did. Like they, for some reason, were like, "Oh, we fucked up, so like we're gonna kind of help you out. You know, we're gonna give you like a little nudge in the right direction, but you still gotta get there yourself."
well, that's really the issue.
Well, and to Steve's point, people have been saying, "Oh, they should take the goal off the board." Other people, the counter argument to that would be, like, "Oh, we don't want, the NHL all of a sudden reviewing a call from the first period in the third and taking a goal off the board." But I don't think that that's the precedent you're setting here because this is such an extenuating circumstance where some off-ice official who should not have been involved was immediately involved in the game. Like, I don't think the NHL is going to start reviewing plays after the next face-off,
Yeah, no. This is extenuating circumstances. Like that's like a slippery slope argument. Like, oh, when does it become, they're reviewing everything? But it's like it's not they're reviewing everything. They literally were just talking about this when the period ended. Like the period ended not that long after that, didn't it? Like
there was a minute and 20 left on the board, and the issue was it's not even like Toronto was literally in the process of reviewing the call when they heard a click because the guy on the other end made the wrong call.
And hung up, yeah.
I don't understand how they didn't call back or something. Like, why?
They've done it before. Like,
why didn't Toronto just call back and be like, "Hey guys,
you made the wrong call."
Maybe they
At
thought
any
that
point-
somebody else, that the other guy's voice was somebody else in the situation room.
But at any given point, the guys in the situation room who knew the call, who were watching the game, could have been like, "What the fuck?"
We see them do it all the time. Like they call down in the middle of a play. Like, you know what I mean?
This was just one huge fuck up. Like
On literally every level.
every part, on everyone's part. I don't even think one individual is to blame.
No, it's
because
like it's a catastrophic failure
of
at
the
every
system.
level.
it's a systemic failure. That's literally what it is.
And I do want to ask you guys this question because this is the second time in 2 years that Columbus has been on the wrong end of a call of this magnitude. This year, it cost them the game in regulation because they lost by 1 goal. Last year was the blown call in overtime where the clock ran. The referee said, we're not going to add the time back. You know, the whistle blew like 2 or 3 seconds ticked off the clock. And the rest were just like, whatever, we're just going to keep playing overtime. And Columbus ends up scoring a goal that would have counted if the correct time was on the board. Doesn't count. They go to a shootout, they lose, and then their starting goaltender gets hurt. I'm sure you guys remember that whole situation.
Oh yeah, how could you forget?
Do you think, and I don't want to put the tinfoil hat on, but do you think that this is a case of the NHL just is not paying as much attention to certain games as other ones? Like, do you think that if this would have happened in a Toronto Maple Leafs game, that this would have been fixed immediately?
I mean, probably. There's more money involved with teams like that,
I
than there
think
are
we
with the.
probably just had different. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Continue.
No, I was just gonna say, like, it's probably just like a money thing, really, right? Like, it's just. I really don't know. Like, I really just don't understand how you'll see them literally, like, we've seen it before. The puck, like, a guy will come across the line, shoot a puck in, right? And it hits the back of the net and comes out funny. And everyone's like, I don't know what happened. And then they blow the horn like 4 or 5 seconds later and the place stops and Toronto calls down, like, yo, that's a goal. Like, I just don't understand why they couldn't be like, "Brr, no, that's not a goal, yo." Like, it's not good. You know what I mean?
They played a whole extra minute and 20 or whatever it was, like, or 40
Exactly.
seconds. Like, how do you?
And to your point, you keep saying, like, how did nobody in the situation room look around and go, we botched it, guys. Like, we need to fix this right now. Like, we can't let this go on. It's not like they didn't know. Like, they knew immediately that the call was botched.
I've literally hit more times than I can count. I have hit the horn and had to stop the game, and everyone looks at you like, "Yo, what the fuck are you doing, asshole?" And it's like, "Yo, I messed up. Hold up."
It's like, you want to get this right, right?
Like we're playing a serious game here. Like I'd like to do my job properly. I messed up. Like let me fix it.
And I really wish that the referees, like you said, they just owned it. They came out after the game and were like, "Oh yeah, we screwed up," but it's like, okay, that's all well and good now, but it's like you've already cost us the game. Like you've already screwed us. You know what I mean?
The similar. Do you remember the replacement refs in the NFL?
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of a similar situation where, except the NFL did the right thing, and they just sold out. When I don't know if you remember, but there was a catch ball Hail Mary in the Packers. Mary. In the Packers Seahawks game.
Mm-hmm.
Where one guy called it a catch.
Well, no, where the Packers player caught it. Seahawks.
Oh, I remember this.
Dad said the other guy caught the ball, and the Packers guy had it in his hands.
That was the
and they
call
called
where
an interception.
The one ref is signaling touchdown, and the other ref is waving it off, and it's in like the same frame. Like that famous GIF.
The one guy's going interception, the other guy's going touchdown.
Yeah, the famous GIF.
They're literally standing next to each other, like making two different calls. That'd be like if both referees were like standing behind the goal and one guy's pointing at it and the other guy's waving it off. It's like, what?
Well, I understand why they called it like that on the field, but they watched the review.
That's That's where the problem comes in, right? It's like when you get a chance to look at it a second time, it's like, bro, come on.
But then the NFL just came out and said, "Yeah, no, we messed up." Like, yeah, okay.
Well, it's going to be interesting.
They released an apology statement and they moved on.
It's going to be interesting because the NHL is officially acknowledging that the mistake was made. The referees acknowledged it. I don't think they handled it the right way, in my opinion. But, I mean, there is something to be said for this is the second time in 2 years that the NHL has had a blatant oversight in the middle of a game that cost the Columbus Blue Jackets a win. I mean, granted, this year it didn't cost them their starting goaltender, but...
I think that comes down to personnel and staff, by the way, I wanted to say. It's probably, like, I assume that you have regional staff for games, and it's probably just comes down to a crappy regional staff in Columbus.
Yeah, well, I mean that needs to be addressed, right? So.
Yeah, 100%. I'm just saying like that. I would assume that's probably why.
Yeah, no. You know what's interesting too is they've been talking about with So with the way the NHL is functioning now, the referees aren't traveling with like they are used to, right? So like they're staying in divisions. So like each division has a set of referees and linesmen that travel within those cities.
Yep.
Um, and they've also brought in a lot of like in order to be able to do this, they've brought in a lot of like trainee refs and like younger people onto these staffs, and it's like, and we've seen it in like the regular NHL, like the training refs have handed out just atrocious calls for the
They've been
most part through
calling
the early.
everything as of recently. It's been actually pathetic.
So like, is there something to be said for like, is the staff that they're hiring like just not up to standard? Like, it's just weird, you know? It's like this is the premier hockey league in the world. It is like the gold standard for professional hockey, and you let this happen. This is something that I would expect to happen at the sports arena. You know what I mean? Like you, to your credit, Tim, like not to be
Hey,
like that guy,
I
but it's
work.
like,
I'm the ref.
Throwing the sports arena under the bus.
well, no, it's just like it's just not something you'd expect from
From the
like
National Hockey League.
yeah, a professional league. Like a house league will make mistakes, like they do all the time. It happens. Like you're human, but it's like they don't have the resources of a situation room in Toronto watching on 100 monitors all night, every single game, frame by frame, you know? Like, so when you have that advantage, mistakes just like that just can't happen. They just can't.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's definitely something that needs to be addressed. And granted, again, this is a situation where, as an outsider, you get to cherry pick a little bit. Like somebody inside the NHL will say, "Oh, but what about the, 2,000 other games that we've ran without incident?" And you're right. The NHL, generally speaking, does a very good job. I like to think. Obviously the refs are an easy target to pick on, but I think in general the NHL has some really, really solid referees. I really do. I think they probably have the best refs out of any sport, in my opinion. Um,
Probably the
that
most
be
consistent anyway.
right. That being said, this is something that can absolutely not happen, and it specifically can't happen 2 years in a row to the same team. That's a joke.
Yeah, no, that's bad.
So, sorry, Columbus Blue Jacket fans, and I'm not putting on a tinfoil hat. I'm not saying it's like a conspiracy, but there's.
You think it's torts? I think they just don't like torts.
I mean, it could be. Torts really has burned a lot of bridges. Like,
Maybe they're just like, fuck torts.
We're gonna get to John Tortorella. We're definitely gonna get to him because I'm sure you guys saw in the file that I sent you. He's a winner of one of my awards this quarter.
Yeah, so let's get to these. Let's get to this.
So, I think we can go down the list of awards because we're gonna end up talking about teams and stats in that discussion anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's fair.
And then at the end, we'll circle back. We'll say, hey, if there's any team you guys want to talk about or play or whatever, we'll talk about it, right? So the quarter mark awards, this is going to be something that we're going to be doing for our quarter mark, halfway, 3/4, and final year podcast from now on, just as a little fun segment. So the first category is most surprising team. My winner was the Montreal Canadiens, and my honorable mention went to the Florida Panthers. So Steve, give me yours, then Tim, give me yours, and then we'll kind of discuss what we're thinking here.
well, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. Like, mine is also the Montreal Canadiens to be the most surprising team to start the season. I mean, like, who would have thought they'd be chasing the Maple Leafs for first in that Canadian division? And I guess my other one would probably be the Blackhawks. The fact that they're sitting third in the Central right now is kind of impressive. I mean, granted, they've played a lot more games than teams like Carolina and Dallas right now. Well, not really. Yeah, they've played 4 more games, so I guess it is. But I don't know. Chicago hasn't looked particularly good, but like they're winning games still, which is interesting. I mean, they're only 6-4-4, but I don't know. They've been their young guys have stepped up in a lot of ways that I wasn't expecting, and they also have some rookies that have been playing well that I didn't expect. I think that's the best way to put it.
Just to, I don't know if the last category, that P%R, that's rankings by point percentage. So
okay.
That'll tell you, like, based on point percentage, the top 4 teams. But anyway,
yeah.
Tim, most surprising winner and honorable mention.
Yeah, it's got to be the Canadians. Like every other team, we pretty much predicted to be somewhere around where they are. So no one's really blown out of the water. My honorable mention probably goes to the Vegas Golden Knights, who are 8-1-1. Uh, I'm not necessarily that surprised by it, but I am a little surprised at the same time.
So one of the interesting things about the Montreal Canadiens is I think in the most surprising thing about them, since they're all of our most surprising team, I think it's the effectiveness of their goal scoring so far. I mean, Tyler Toffoli is tied for second in the league with 9 goals. Um, who who would have saw that coming? I mean, he's always been a good player, but it's not like he's been ever like a 40 goal scorer. Like, um,
We'll talk more about him later.
and I just think like they're just getting a lot of contributions from players up and down the lineup. Like Josh Anderson has 8 goals. You know, Jeff Petrie at one point was leading defenseman in points. I think that to me is the most surprising. Not necessarily that the defense is as good as it is or that the goaltenders are playing as well, but like just how many goals they're scoring is the big surprise to me.
Yeah, I mean, they're scoring seemingly at will. It's kind of impressive, honestly.
Tyler Toffoli's a stud, an absolute stud.
I mean, he's playing like one.
Guys wheeling and dealing.
Well, how about Nick Suzuki?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he took a big step forward.
Suzuki and him together have been playing so well. It's incredible.
Kakiniemi's been good for them too this year.
Yes. They just had a very good top 2 lines.
Well, a lot of the young guys who we thought were going to be question marks, because I mean, there's really no reason they wouldn't have been. They're second, third year players, right? Have just continued to play like as well as we thought they would after they showed us last year in the playoffs, which has been honestly really impressive.
And I don't want to say I'm that surprised, but it's really just that the teams that they're beating is really the surprising part. Like,
I mean, they've beat up on Vancouver. I don't know how many times now. Like,
yeah,
They played like 5 games against them and won 4.
Yeah. What's the next category, Rob? I think it's this. I think that's it, right?
Yeah, so the next category is most disappointing team, and my winner is the Vancouver Canucks, and my honorable mention goes to the New York Rangers. So we'll go again, Steve, and then Tim, and then we'll discuss.
most disappointing, huh? I mean, honestly, I'm gonna say the Ottawa Senators. Like, I didn't
I
think they were
knew
gonna be
he
very.
was. I knew it.
I didn't think they were gonna be great, but like, oh my God, like they have been exceptionally bad. I mean, 2-11-1. I mean, come on. And there
Yeah,
are
that's pretty
guys
brutal.
on that team that we really thought were gonna be good for them. Like Matt Murray was supposed to be like the answer for them, and like, oh no, he has not been the answer at all.
They didn't
And
look that bad in their first couple games either, but then they just spiraled down.
yeah, like they looked all right. Like they lost their first couple of games or whatever, and like yeah, they're young. You can expect them to struggle, but like
They
Jesus
looked good
Christ,
though.
like
They looked good on the ice their first
eh,
couple games, and then they just.
yeah, and then it was just like a monstrous nosedive. Like it was kind of bad. I mean, and they've got it's not even like they're in games. Like they're getting absolutely blown off the ice most nights. Like they're losing like 7-2, 7-3 in games that they were going to a period like 2-1 or 1-1, you know? Like it's just bizarre.
It's hard to watch.
It really
It's hard to
is.
watch because if in our season preview episode, I was so excited to watch some of these guys play. And granted, like Stutzla's had a pretty good season so far. I think Murray, as of late, the last 3 games specifically, has been a new player, not the player he was before, where it was like the game would be 4-0 by the end of the first period. But it's just hard to watch games like that, you know, where it's like, oh, I want to watch Tim Stutzla play, but it's a 6-0 hockey game. Like, eh.
Literally like 5 minutes in, like
Tim, who is your 2 teams for this category?
My first team is the Vancouver Canucks. Obviously, they look like dog shit.
yeah, it's really hard to
And
argue with that.
they're really just pathetic. And my runner-up is obviously the Rangers, who really just not doing it.
Yeah,
Not doing it.
so I had a couple of teams that was bouncing back and forth. I almost put the Edmonton Oilers in here because, granted, yes, the Oilers are sitting third in the division right now, but in point percentage wise, they're fifth, so they're actually outside of the playoff picture. They're 8-7-0, pretty much the definition of mediocre almost. And the reason that I was disappointed in them is because, the expectations were so high for the Oilers, right? And that's why I picked the Canucks, because the expectations for the Canucks this year, coming off, you beat the Stanley Cup champions, you take the Vegas Golden Knights to 7 games, and you only lose like 2-1 or 3-1 that last game. The expectations for this roster, yes, they lost a couple of pieces. I expect them to take a step back, but good Lord, they stepped back one step off a cliff. And the Oilers, kind of the same thing for me. They're just disappointing because I want to see this team succeed. I want to see Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl make a deep run in the playoffs. But they just give me such reason to just not believe in them every single season. And the goaltending has been just as bad this year as it always has been. So
Mikko Koskinen looks awful.
Yeah, it's just like...
You just wonder, like, why. I know they're stuck with him now, but it's like, why do they just keep ramming their head against the wall with this? Like,
with Mike Smith too, like, hello.
You had so many options this season in free agency, and how do you strike out on all of them? Like, come on, guys, like, really?
Yeah, my head hurts.
Bro, like, honestly, like, my brain hurts. Like, I just don't understand how you could do that. You know what I mean?
Even a guy like Thomas Greiss, who's arguably his ceiling is like a 1A, would have been a major upgrade for this team.
100%. He would have been at least reliable.
Not to mention the grade A goaltenders that are on the market or were on the market. Like, yeah, and I think the thing the Canucks that's the most disappointing is really just the defense. Like, you can point to the goalies and say, oh, they have terrible numbers. But when you watch these games, I mean, these guys are just left out to dry every single night. Like, I don't know what happened. I guess Chris Tanev really was the anchor that solidified that back end. But, Jesus, there is just uncovered guys in the slot. People aren't tying up sticks. There's getting tips in the high slot, unguarded point shots. Like, what happened? Like, how do you go from beating the Stanley Cup champions to not even knowing what your own end of the rink looks like? Like, I really don't understand, where the major disconnect from that last season to now, where all of a sudden the wheels just fell off the wagon. And not only did the wheels just fall off the wagon, the wheels fell off the wagon and the cart and fell off a cliff.
And then it burst into flames. Like,
so,
like, everything just went wrong.
So I know the Rangers have looked a little bit better the last 2 or 3 games specifically, but from 2 Rangers fans, what has been the most disappointing part about this team so far this season?
Well, I think that we should move into the most disappointing player category then, so we can talk. So I can fucking shit talk Mika Zibanejad.
All right, so yeah, well, we'll skip down. So we'll skip these 2 categories. We'll circle back to them, and yeah, let's go to the most disappointing player then. Mine was Evgeny Dadonov. He only has 3 goals in 14 games played, and my runner-up was Sergei Bobrovsky, who, despite having a good record, still can't get his numbers under control, and he's being heavily outplayed by Chris Driedger in the net. It's not even close, the stats between the 2 of them. So I guess we'll go to Steve, and then I guess we know Tim's answer, which will circle us back to the Rangers. So what do you got, Steve? I might be having some lag issues here. Just for the record, for any podcast listeners, I am gonna get this lag under control. I do have a new modem that's being actually shipped to my house from my ISP, so shout out to Optimum, but totally disconnected here for a second. So I guess I'll just kind of wrap up my own. Oh my God, my ears, that hurts so bad.
Welcome back, friend.
I was saying, Steve, what's your most disappointing player? And then we know Tim's, which will circle us back to the New York Rangers. So, Steve, most disappointing player so far?
Disappointing player. Um, Overall, probably Mika Zibanejad. Like like Tim said, like I'm not trying to steal his answer, so I'm gonna go with a different one. Trying to think, probably Elias Pettersson, actually, to be honest with you. Up until he recently got hot, he's been
Damn
kind
it,
of
that
just
was my runner-up.
coasting. I mean, I'll take your runner-up over your actual pick. Like, you still get to
Yeah,
talk about
yeah,
your guy.
yeah. No, yeah, keep going. No, keep going.
But like with Elias Pettersson, like he just looks disinterested. I don't know how to describe it. He just looks disinterested, you know? Like he just he was
Not sure
coasting.
he
He
wants to
wasn't like
play.
fighting for anything, and then he started playing better, but like still,
Even when he laid that dude out, he didn't even really lay him out. The guy kind of just skated into him, and he just kind of shouldered him.
yeah, like there
He did,
wasn't anything.
like it was a big hit, but like he just kind of stood there still.
Yeah, I don't know. It was
Interesting play.
yeah,
So we'll go back to Tim, and you know, to Steve, to your credit, you know, Patterson is struggling is also probably part of the reason why the Canucks got off to just such an atrocious start.
oh yeah.
That top line was just not very good, but
I mean,
um,
Brock Besser was good.
Brock
Otherwise,
Besser almost killed me in fantasy, so yes, he's been very good so far. Tied for second in the league in goals, actually. Um, but okay, so Tim, I guess at this point it's been revealed your two picks, which would be Zibanejad and Pedersen, right?
Yes.
So, two Rangers fans, wrap it up in a bow. What's been going on with the Rangers? They've looked better as of late. The last 2 or 3 games, they've actually looked pretty good. But what's going on with the New York Rangers?
honestly,
Honestly, I think it's time for just a coach change. I don't really know.
yeah. I
I
just
think it's time for him to go.
they just don't seem to want to play for him, no matter how much like how many chances they get. And like, not for nothing, this wasn't a coach that like John Davidson was exactly thrilled about. It wasn't his pick. Like he inherited David Quinn. All the signs pointed to the Rangers originally being really interested in Jim Montgomery before he, ended up signing in Dallas and then promptly getting fired because of his alcoholism. Uh, so, but my whole thing is like now that Monty's a free agent again, right? Like he's out on the market, he's out of rehab. Like if he's willing to take on the responsibility of a head coaching job, I don't see why the Rangers don't reach out to him. Like this was the guy you wanted originally, and now he's available. You know, and what do you have to lose? Like the team already isn't doing well. You know, bless
Bless
you.
you.
Sorry.
So when you say that you feel like the coach might be the issue, bless you, is it?
Thank you.
Are you noticing a lack of effort or a lack of a specific thing, like they're not forechecking or they're not back checking, or is it just an overall lack of effort from the team?
I couldn't even like tell you one specific thing because they don't do anything at all.
They're just like they defend kind of better this year than they did last year, but at the same time, like
One
they just
minute
don't
they're like,
score.
1 minute they're good at forechecking, but they're not passing. The next minute they can pass, but they can't forecheck. The next minute they can play defense, but they can't get it out.
Yeah, it's just like a seemingly like never-ending cycle of like they just can't figure it out, and it's like, oh my God, like you guys need to just figure it out.
There's no cohesion at all on the team, and that's why I think it's time for a coach change. Because at this point, how many games have they played? 10 or 11?
Something like that, yeah.
The Rangers have played 11
They played
games.
11 games. Yeah, so by 11 games, if you still can't figure out the offense, if your supposed second superstar on the team, supposed to be leading goal scorer, or battling for leading goal scorer as Zibanejad, has 1 point and is on an empty net in 11 games, you have an issue.
You
And
have a big issue.
you can't shop your team out because they're young and you just won't get that much for them when they're not playing well.
It's it's one of the things I've really noticed about Mika Zibanejad this year that's very surprising to me is, and this is a very specific part of the game that he was very good at last year, and that's the one-timer on the power play. I've noticed him whiff more of those this year. Not even get them on net. He's not scoring. Completely whiffing, not even hitting the puck on net, more than I noticed the entirety of last year.
I think it has to do with he's probably in his own head now, you know what I mean? Like he's gripping the stick a little too tight. Like he's thinking about it more than he used to. He used to just grip it and rip it. Now he's like, "Oh man, I'm not scoring. I got to score. Like they need me." Like that whole kind of thing, you know?
I also think that Kreider not playing well also really hurts him.
Mm-hmm.
So
That being said, though, Vucevic has looked really good.
Vucevic has looked great. Miller
Keandre Miller's
Keandre
been
Miller's
fantastic.
looks phenomenal.
He's got to be a Calder Trophy like favorite right now, right?
Looks
like one
good.
of them.
Trouba actually looks good. I like the way that Trouba's playing. Di Giuseppe's playing good. Strome is playing good. The kids are playing well. Like Lafreniere is doing okay. I don't really know what to say.
He's adjusting. Like people expected him
Yeah.
to come out and be like Connor McDavid, and it's like we all knew he wasn't going to be that. Like
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not disappointed, but he could do more. I know he could do more because you can see it. He has the moves and like the ability. He's just not using it. He almost is just not playing his game. He's trying to, and that's why I think also a coach change might help him because it looks like he's not comfortable out there.
yeah, I mean, I could totally see that too.
It's sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just say it's just an interesting situation because, like I said, everyone's sitting here, even like buddies of mine from other states who are hockey fans, are like, "What's good with Lafreniere?" And it's like absolutely nothing. He's 19 years old and trying to figure out how to play in the National Hockey League. Like,
And stop pointing the finger at the 19-year-old when the fucking vets on the team aren't doing shit.
exactly
I hate that argument. Don't single out a singular player that you want to do well when the whole team is doing poorly.
especially when that player is Mika Zibanejad, supposedly your number one center. You know, like I don't know.
Like Bo Horvat was playing really well, and he was the only reason that Vancouver was in those early games. But so I wouldn't say that Bo Horvat looks bad, but the Vancouver Canucks look like dog shit.
Oh yeah,
Like just to analogous wise.
It's definitely been a rough season for the Rangers, and especially early on. It's again early on they had a lot of issues keeping the puck out of the net, which is, I mean, that's to be expected. You know, that's not anything new for this team. It seems like lately they've started to get that under control. Keandre Miller, especially being added to the team, has really helped solidify that back end. Like you said, they just kind of seem out of sync. Like Zibanejad's not hitting the one-timers. Even though Panarin's putting up a lot of points, he's not as noticeable this year. Like last year, every time this guy touched the puck, you know, you were jumping out of your seat. He seems a little bit more passive this year. Kako has looked
He's
okay.
losing the puck a lot.
Yeah, like he just every time Panarin touched the puck last year when I was watching the Rangers, I was expecting something to happen. And this year I'm like, oh, he's skating down the wall again. Oh, he's behind the net. Oh, okay, he turned it over. You know, like
it's like he's getting a lot of secondary assists. He's not like the one making the plays happen like he was. You know.
yeah, and like other guys around the team too. Like Kako, we expect to take a big jump. He's off to a sluggish start, but
He's looked good is the thing. Like he's looked good playing. He looks engaged. He's physical. He's shooting the puck. You know, like he's actually playing.
they just look out of
So
sync. You know, like
yeah,
there's a disconnect on this team somewhere.
yeah, somewhere.
So I mean, yeah, like I guess that kind of just puts that up into a neat little bow here. So the fall off candidate teams that are doing well currently that you expect to drop, or not expect but could drop off, you think have a good chance of dropping
So
off.
this is like for teams or players.
We'll do the team first, so we wrap up the team categories, and then we'll get into the rest of the individual category for players.
Oh, okay.
So we'll wrap up the team categories here with the fall off candidate. My pick was the Florida Panthers, just because I look at that roster and they're getting really, really good goaltending out of Chris Drieger. He's playing really, really well above. He's playing well above water at this point, considering the amount of quality chances he's faced. So I expect at some point he will come back down to earth a little bit. And, I just look at that roster and I'm just like, I'm not impressed. Like, they're missing a lot of pieces, a lot of holes, and I don't like the chance of them sustaining this success. And my honorable mention was the Capitals for largely the same reason. I think Vanacek is playing really, really well right now. How long can he keep that up, really, is the question. So, go to Steve, we'll go to Tim, and then we'll discuss.
Most team fall off candidates for the team. I probably would say honestly the Montreal Canadiens. I just think I'm not saying they can't continue to play this well. It's just that they're playing so far above water and they're getting such amazing goaltending and goal scoring that the goal scoring is going to have to come back down to earth. They're just not going to continue to average. I think they're averaging something stupid over 3 goals a game or something close to 4. It's that's just going to come back down to earth. It's just natural. I don't think that necessarily means they're going to fall out of the playoff picture. I just don't think they're going to be as high flying or as explosive as they are right now. I could see the Canadians settling into a nice 3-4. Even they could take that number 2 spot and stay there. I'm not saying fall off in terms of they fall out and be completely terrible. It's just I just don't think they're going to continue to score the way they've been scoring. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That was my whole argument against them basically at the start of the whole season, just
and if they prove me wrong, they prove me wrong. I'll be completely fine with the Montreal Canadiens continuing to just win games and play exciting hockey.
If there was one guy that I could give another playoff run, another deep playoff run to in this league, it would be Carey Price.
100%. He's earned it. I mean, winningest goaltender in franchise history. The guy's earned a shot at a Stanley Cup. So.
It's kind of like the Sabres. I want the Canadians to prove me wrong,
Pretty much. I'd love to see them prove me wrong. It's just I don't. Not that I don't think they won't. It's just
you don't think they'll be challenging for the President's Trophy, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean they haven't in the past they haven't proven me right. So.
If I didn't have such a vendetta, I would say I wish Pat Garina would win a cup. Team fall off candidate is. I predict the Columbus Blue Jackets. I don't think they're going to do any better than they are. I think that they're going to drop down because I think that Dallas, Nashville, and Carolina are going to jump above them. They're only up in points because they have games played, and I also don't think they have 3 overtime losses. I don't think that those will be overtime losses eventually. I think those will be just regular losses. I don't think Patrick Laine is going to work out with them. I think they're just going
to. I mean, he's already been a healthy scratch, right? So.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to work. So. That, and then my second team is probably the Carolina Hurricanes. They're 7-3 right now, and I don't think they've looked that great on the ice watching them play. So they've recently lost and had tough games against some pretty Chicago Blackhawk looking competition, and yeah, they shouldn't be in the same ballpark.
Yeah, I it's interesting because, one of my fall off candidate, spoiler alert, one of my fall off candidate for players is Peter Mrazek, because I don't think he's gonna carry this .99 goals against average through the rest of the season.
Yeah, no, that's just absurd.
And I really do like almost everything about the Carolina Hurricanes outside of the goaltending, to be honest with you. I like the forward core. It's a really, really deep forward core. The defense is stacked, but that goaltending is just every time we get down to it, it's just is it good enough? Not really.
No, definitely not.
The Canadians, I wanted to put them here, but at this point, I've had to put my foot in my mouth so many times with this team already.
Yeah, you should.
So
I told you that they weren't going to be bad.
I never said they were going to be bad. I put them the first spot outside the playoffs. I didn't say they were going to be bad. I just thought they weren't going to
score. To me.
I just thought they weren't going to score as many goals as they're scoring. I also thought the Canucks were going to be better, and they've apparently forgotten how to play hockey. So
yeah, they know how to play hockey. They're just not. They're just choosing not to.
Pretty much.
So, yeah, just
They
keep.
had like a.
Oh,
They
sorry.
just had a really rough start, I think. And after they had a really rough start, they all just kind of quit.
It's definitely tough because of the format, right? So the Canadiens come out of the gate hot, right? The Canucks come out of the gate cold. And that happens all the time. I mean, we saw last year the Dallas Stars weren't even in a playoff spot for like the first half of the season, right? End up
You
going to the
score
Stanley Cup
5 goals in
Finals.
a game and lose. Like that's demoralizing to score 5 goals in a game and lose, even if it's not the goalie's fault.
Well, I think part of the issue is in a normal season, right? You come out of the gate cold, you're not losing to the same team over and over again, right? Like you come out of the gate cold, you lose a couple games, maybe you shouldn't, but then you're like, all right, we have a California road trip, right? We can probably go take 5 out of 6 points against the Kings, the Ducks, and the Sharks, and that gives you a chance to right the ship. Whereas this time, it's like, oh God, we just lost to the Canadiens, and we have to play them 3 more times in the next week. So there's no chance for you to get off that slide when you just keep getting crushed by the same team over and over again. Like, it's
Especially when the
definitely,
player's hot, like Toffoli when he got hot against them.
yeah, like it's just rough. It's a rough go
Guys
because of
had
the
their number.
format, but I mean, we'll see what happens with them. I don't know how I feel about the Canucks at this point, so we'll see. Um, we'll go to the most surprising player. Kind of talked about him already, but my most surprising player is Tyler Toffoli. I mean, he's absolutely red hot right now. 9 goals already. I don't know if he'll keep up that pace because he's typically been around a 25 goal player. We'll see. And my other most surprising player is Kevin Lankinen from the Chicago Blackhawks. I mean, at the beginning of the season, it was supposed to be Colin Delia and Malcolm Subban battling for that number 1 spot. Kevin Lankinen comes out of nowhere, wins his first game. They say, all right, kid, go out there, play again. And right now he's got a .217 and a .933 save percentage. So big surprise from the Chicago Blackhawks. So, Steve, who is your most surprising player so far?
It's been tough. I mean, honestly, I'm gonna go with Mitch Marner. Just because Mitch Marner is tearing it up. I mean, 21 points and I think it's 14 games or whatever. Like he was tied with Connor McDavid for the league lead with 22 points through 11 games, and then Connor got hot. But I mean, I always thought Mitch was good. Like nobody's gonna. I've been probably the big advocate of being the best player on that team for a while, but I mean, I didn't expect him to be chasing Connor McDavid to start the season, you know? Like he's just been red hot.
Yeah, he's been on another level
And he
for
killed me
sure.
in fantasy last week, so I was real appreciative of that.
Tim, most surprising player.
My most surprising player is Andre Kopitar. Actually, he's actually playing really well and put up a lot of points on a team that is. I also think that the LA Kings are playing well. Watching them play, they don't look bad, honestly. Even Drew Doughty, the person we all despise.
Yeah,
Like he actually doesn't look bad out there.
Kopi's got 15 points. He's got, what, 12 assists already?
That's what I'm saying. I'm actually quite surprised with him.
Dude,
And my runner-up would be Pavelski, who I'm also surprised is playing as well as he is.
Yeah, bro, Pavelski's on fire.
absolutely. After that
he's
contract. Sorry.
He's playing well above water.
I mean, we all like dumped on him last year for signing that contract and putting up like 11 goals, and he came out of the gate this year was like, all right, I got 7 goals in my first 10 games, and it's like, right.
Well, the playoffs, he also ran it up.
It definitely, yeah, it took him a while to adjust, but I mean, it looks like Pavelski's finally the player that they paid for.
Yeah.
So we'll go on to the next category.
Also,
Yeah.
my second runner-up is Claude Giroux, who, outside of just winning faceoffs, doesn't do shit. All right, moving on.
His JVR's got 18 points though.
Yeah, I don't know how JVR's got doing that though. That's wild.
JVR is ripping it up, but not with him. I don't know what he's doing.
Moving
on.
We'll go to the fall-off candidate for the player before we go back to the previous category. So my fall-off candidate, I hate to bet against him at this point, but I have to bet against Tyler Toffoli just because, he's career-wise, he's typically been around a 25-goal guy. And he's playing on a team that if the team's offense starts to regress, he's probably going to be the one that's going to be hit the hardest because he's the one they're looking for right now. Like, he's getting fed the puck. So if the team's offense starts to regress back to the mean, he's going to start to regress back to the mean. And I think that I think he's still going to hit, decent numbers, but by fall off, I mean he's not going to be like a 40 goal scorer like he's looking like right now. And my honorable mention is Peter Mrazek, just because I think his health issues are once again just going to derail him this season. Like, he's got a 9.55, and that's fantastic, but I just can't see him staying healthy long enough to be consistent when he's had such major issues, even when he's healthy. So those are my two guys. So we'll go to Steve, and then we'll go to Tim.
Fall off candidate player wise, huh? I mean, JVR is my guy. I just don't. JVR's never been a guy that's gonna lead the league in points or be chasing, be 4 goals back of the league leader. I think JVR is a good player. I just don't think, you know, I think he's scoring so much right now by way of, the rest of the Philadelphia Flyers offense being kind of dry. I mean, Claude Giroux's struggling, Jacob Voracek has struggled, so he's just kind of stepped in and filled that void for them right now. But I think once those guys start going, then you'll probably see his points start to take a step back as he gets less opportunity, you know?
Yeah, I mean, he's got 18 points already. I mean, that's just absurd.
It's absolutely ridiculous. Like, that's insane.
Tim, who are your fall-off candidates?
My first pick is. I honestly don't think that. I don't think that. Who is it? Yeah, I don't think Quinn Hughes is going to put up. Quinn Hughes has 17 points right now, and I really don't know how. I don't think he's going to put up any more points because I think that the Vancouver Canucks are just going to keep falling off.
Well, the thing is, he's the only one scoring. That's why he's got so many points. So I think he'll keep putting up points. I mean, Quinn Hughes did it last year. He put up almost 60.
Yeah, I'm just not sure he'll be able to keep it up with the team playing as bad as they are.
Yeah, I mean, if the team starts to regress offensively, he's going to be the one that's probably hit the hardest. Just because, like, he is the guy that's dishing the puck. He's making all the plays right now. I mean, I'm with Steve. I still think he's going to put up his points. But if you ask me, do I think he's going to be a point per game by the end of the year? I don't know if he'll be a point per game, but I think he's going to be close. He's going to be real close.
I shouldn't say he's not going to put up any points, but like I don't think he'll have like Rob said. I don't think he'll have the point 1, 2, whatever he has.
The point per game, yeah, no, I don't think he'll be point per game, but I still think he'll be fine.
I still think he'll
put up his points.
Honestly. I think if anything else, there's a chance that when the team starts to regress, they just like point to Quinn and they're like, "All right, you got to do it, kid."
Yeah, I mean, he did it last year. He had, like I said, almost 60 points in his rookie year. So I don't see why he couldn't continue to have this kind of pace.
He definitely could. I'm just not confident on it. And
well, the Canucks are terrible, so I can't blame you.
My runner-up is Mackenzie Blackwood, who's like they haven't really played as of recently, but I just don't think that he's like. I think he's playing just above his head a little bit at 2-0-1.
I think as the
and
Devils
like a 1.9.
Yeah, I think as the Devils come back down to earth, I mean his numbers are going to inevitably drop with them. My eyes have been opened to Mackenzie Blackwood. I think he's a fantastic goaltender for as young as he is. But that being said, I think the Devils are a worse team than they're playing like. So as they come back down to earth, he's going to just get dragged down with them. Like the team is just an anchor weight on his ankles.
Yeah, that's like the unfortunate part because Mackenzie Blackwood is a good goaltender. Like he's been playing well for a pretty terrible team, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I apologized to our buddy Pete. I was like, I'm sorry for doubting Blackwood so hard a couple of years ago when he's a fantastic young goaltender. It's just he's playing for a really bad team. So
yeah.
So player to watch for. This is a category like Could be any player, young, old, just players that you think is worth keeping an eye on for the rest of the season. My guy is Charlie McAvoy. Started out the year real slow, only had like 1 point in his first like 6 or 7 games or something like that. And since then, he's actually he's pulled his numbers back up to almost a point per game. Running that power play one, running that second line penalty kill, I think he's just going to be lights out for the rest of the year. Norris candidate potential for sure. And my backup guy for that is Miro Heiskanen, another defenseman. Starting off a little bit slow. He's only got 7 assists, no goals so far. But, I mean, after the things we saw him do in the playoffs last year, he's definitely, in my opinion, worth keeping an eye on for the rest of the year. Somebody I think that could explode and put up just a point streak and get himself back in that Norris candidate that we thought he would be at this point in his career. So, who are your 2 players to keep an eye on, Steve?
My 2 players to keep an eye on, huh? I'm not really sure. I mean, I would say Dylan Strome just because Patrick Kane's been getting hot recently and he's riding shotgun. And especially since they're missing Jonathan Taves, I think him finally adjusting to that number 1 role that they're expecting to take over with with Kirby Doc being hurt. I think he's going to grow into it nicely. So I think you'll see some nice significant production out of Dylan Strome coming down the stretch this year. And on top of that, I would honestly say players like Adam Fox, because now that he's kind of like the default like go-to guy with the whole Tony DeAngelo situation happening in New York, I definitely think Adam Fox is going to get more points now than he has been so far, just because he's going to be the only option on that number 1 power play, you know?
That's a good pick. I think that his production is definitely going to skyrocket, being the de facto PP1 quarterback at that point. That's a good pick. Tim, who are your 2 players to watch for?
So, give me 1 second. I don't want to butcher his name too badly, so I need to look it up.
Yes, international hockey names, always an interesting topic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't want to mess it up, and I can't even find it. Velarde though in LA.
Gabe
Looks
Velarde.
Oh,
incredible.
Gabe Velarde.
Yeah, he looks incredible.
He's sick.
Well, I've been watching the past couple games because I don't know why. Like those games are just on so late, and I have nothing else to do. So I've been watching every LA game, and he looks phenomenal, and I really like his play. And also, Joseph on Pittsburgh is my runner-up.
Oh, Matthew Pierre-Joseph.
Yeah,
He's been really good too.
yeah, he looks really good out there, and I think that the team needs to heat it up, and I think Malkin's heating up too, so I think that they'll all start to get more points.
Yeah, 2 very worthy picks. I mean, Joseph's been talked about a lot in the Pittsburgh media as of late. Kind of in a similar vein to Keandre Miller, a kid that made the camp and then made the roster, but was just kind of waiting in the weeds for his time to shine. And then, I mean, Miller's been absolutely phenomenal for the New York Rangers, and Joseph is really growing into his role on a very, I wouldn't say competitive, but on a competitive in terms of you don't get to have bad games in Pittsburgh, generally speaking, unless you have Genny Malkin.
Yeah.
So definitely an interesting kid to watch out for. And I mean, speaking of kids, I mean, let's go to the next category, the rookies to watch. My first pick is Kevin Lankinen. I mean, like I said earlier, going to keep it short and sweet. He's just been phenomenal for a defensively deficient Chicago Blackhawks team. I don't think he'll keep up this pace for the rest of the year, but it's definitely worth watching at this point. And my second one would be Niels Höglander of the Vancouver Canucks, who really kind of floated that top line early on in the season when they were not very good. Höglander really stood out to me, and the thing that I love about this kid is he plays every game as if it could be his last game in the NHL. You don't see you don't see him take a shift off. I mean, he's just tenacious, and you can tell he's just so excited to be in the league. So definitely a kid that I would say is worth keeping an eye on. So rookies to watch. Who you got, Steve?
I'm gonna go with, even though I don't know if he's technically a rookie or not, but Alex Nedeljkovic is getting a shot now with James Reimer being the de facto starter with Mrazek going down with an injury today or this week. So I think like now with Neto Jokovic actually getting a shot to play, he might actually just come in and be the goaltender we've been asking. Why haven't the Canes gone out and got a real goaltender? And maybe he's the guy. So I think he's a guy to look out for the next month or so. It might be a real game changer for them.
It's really weird. They don't even have him listed on their website. That's kind of disrespectful.
Yeah, I was reading it earlier today on one of the fantasy things as it was talking about. Actually, it wasn't even fantasy. It was NHL.com. It was Dan Rosen's mailbag because they were asking him about what they think they're going to do because Mrazek got injured and Alex is now getting a shot. So who knows? Might be
Yeah, I have no
exactly what they're
idea if
missing.
he's technically a rookie, but like he's only 25 and he doesn't have that much NHL experience. Like he's got 6 games, so I think he actually is technically still a rookie. So
Yeah, because 25 games is like when you reach your rookie cap, I think.
So Tim, rookie to watch for the rest of the season.
Grigory,
Oh, Gregory
What
Denisenko
yeah, him,
in Florida.
yeah,
He's sick.
There's
yeah. He looks.
sorry.
Florida also looks really hot, so I would have to go with him. And then my runner-up would be probably Foudy or Foudy
Oh, Liam
of
Foudy.
Columbus. Yeah.
Liam Foudy. It's interesting that as much as like the big name quote unquote rookies have, I think Stutzler's had a pretty good season so far. Laugh obviously is having an adjustment period, which is to be expected. I think Stutzler's had a good season, but I mean, there's been a couple of guys like this seems like the year of like the older rookie, right? Like Lankinen, I think is 24. Steve's pick Nedeljkovic is 25. Kaprizov in Minnesota, I think is 25, 26.
He's like 24, I think. Yeah.
So it's interesting. Like there's a lot of quote unquote older rookies this year, but I think Denisenko is younger though, if I'm correct.
Yeah, he's like 19 or 20.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of interesting rookies to keep in mind for this season. So I would say Keandre Miller, if I had another pick, would be one because he's just been just unbelievable for them. I mean, the awareness this kid has at his age defensively is something that the Rangers have needed so desperately.
And he's also really decent. Like he's good offensively as well. Like he's managed to get himself into good positions to put up points.
Yeah, and
He looks a lot like Adam Fox did last season.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that his read on the defensive side is beyond his years. Like he's reading the play as if he's been playing for 3 or 4 years already.
Oh yeah.
Like that play last night he made against the Islanders that saved the goal. With his back turned to the play, he just knows instinctively to flick his stick out and deflect it away from the net. He wasn't even looking. Like,
yeah, that was kind of wild.
That's the kind of awareness that it's hard to teach that.
Oh yeah.
So our final award for this podcast is the LTL Light and Lamp Podcast Inaugural Bum Award. Given to the player. It could be a player, a coach, an organization. It could be anybody in the hockey world that's just being a bum. And my pick this year, my winner so far for the quarter mark is John Tortorella, who seems like hell-bent on speed running his eventual unemployment from the Columbus Blue Jackets.
That's actually kind of weak.
From his, it's basically running both Jack Roslovic running PLD out of town, right? And he's already benched Laine. Allegedly, it was because of Laine mouthing off to an assistant coach, but regardless, Laine only played 7 minutes last night. His team's not exactly winning a ton of games right now, and he just seems to be doing his absolute damnedest to not be employed with the Columbus Blue Jackets. I mean, it just seems like he really doesn't want to be a coach there anymore. And this is a guy that I've been super high on. I've been talking about for years how he's one of the best coaches in the league, but I'm just sitting here like, Torts, buddy, You just got Laine. You can't piss him off already. He's on a 1-year deal. Like, please.
You can't do this already, bro.
And my honorable mention for my bum award is Evander Kane for somehow finding himself over $26 million in debt and still posting stuff on Instagram and Snapchat and all this other crap about flashing his jewelry and stuff when it's like, dude, you literally have $26 million in gambling debt and you declared bankruptcy. You're a
Yeah.
bum. So, Steve, who is your picks for the inaugural Light in the Lamp podcast bum award?
I don't know. That's a good one. This one I had a hard time with. Like, I couldn't think of anybody like that was outstandingly worth the bum award. So even in retirement, I'm gonna give it to him just because it's tradition around here. David Backus, I'm looking at you, kid.
Oh my god.
No,
Listen, I
leave
know you're not
Dave
playing
alone.
anymore, but you know what's up.
No.
He got the Biggest Loser award from you twice, and now he's getting the bum award.
Yeah, bro. It's never not gonna happen.
Whatever he's doing, he's being a bum right now.
It's really just because he's a bum for signing that big contract with the fucking Bruins. And then getting traded to the Anaheim Ducks for Nick Ritchie, who's one of the. You know what? No. Yeah, that's why. Because he put Nick Ritchie on the Bruins, and Nick Ritchie cost him that game last year by being an absolute fucking idiot.
You heard it here, folks. It's all David Backus' fault. God
Yeah, bro.
damn it, David Backus. Tim, who's getting your podcast bum award?
You already know who my bum award goes to. It's going to that fuck who fucked me 3 years in a row in fantasy hockey. I'm looking at you, Pecorine. You're still not playing up. You're still not playing to your ceiling, you piece of poop.
So is this a retroactive bum award for those 3 years?
Bro, but it's a modern bum award too, because he doesn't look like a bum out of there anyway.
Oh my god. So your awards will be in the mail. They won't actually be. I don't have an actual bum award, but
If you contact us, I'll give you a bum award.
If you want one, like, we can probably get you one, but like,
yeah, if John Tortorella calls me on my cell phone and demands a bum award, otherwise he's gonna bench me, I'll make one for him. Like that.
I mean, I'd be like, yo, go ahead, bench me. I'm not even playing already.
It's like you guys call me the next day and like, yo, Rob, can you hang out? I'm like, nah, I'm riding the pine tonight, boys. Coach benched me. Any last minute things you guys want to talk about before we wrap this up?
We talked about Tony DeAngelo last week, right?
Yes.
All right. So just to put a bow on it, because apparently how the story's coming out is he's just done, yo. Like, even I don't know if that happened after or before, but Jeff Gorton sat down and was like, yeah, no, he's done. He's gone. And the only thing I've heard since then is that Calgary was the team that was interested and that Sam Bennett was one of the pieces that was supposedly talked about moving. And I would really like Sam Bennett on the Rangers for especially Tony DeAngelo, which is essentially a bag of pucks. So, like, hey, Jeff Gordon, make it happen.
Yeah, Tony DeAngelo is also definitely deserving of a bum award.
Yeah, but for a whole different reason. Not hockey related, just being a fucking racist. Like,
well, I mean, Evander Kane's not hockey related either. He's just $26 million in debt.
yeah, well, that's just no. He gets the bum award for being a clown, bro. Like, he's out here clowning. Like, oh, look at me with my
he's
big stack
actually
of
just a bum.
cash.
He's actually just a bum. He's gonna
like
be a
a-
bum on the street.
Look at my fat stacks of cash. You know what's funny? I watched a documentary about him. They were talking about how this happened to him, and the ironic part is he could have got out of this if he would have said that he wasn't going to play this year because of COVID. Then they couldn't have been expected to pay. He wouldn't have been expected to pay his debts because he used his contract with the San Jose Sharks to leverage all the money to get the loans. So they gave it to him on the fact that he was going to be employed, and if he wasn't employed, his contract would be void, and therefore all of his money related to the contract would also be void.
Oh my god.
So he could have got out of it, but then he said he wanted to play, so now he's $26 million in debt. So,
He's gambling debt too. Like Jesus Christ.
bro, he spent like $100,000 in one day at one of those
I mean,
casinos in Las Vegas.
he'll probably get it cut down without a doubt to like a couple million.
I mean, $26 million really isn't realistically
for
like
him.
for him, considering he's made up to this point over $55 million. Like,
I'm just saying, like, it's also
Well, when
like,
you declare
usually,
bankruptcy, you get that stuff consolidated anyway.
yeah,
I'm
it's-
saying, like, usually because they know they can't get it from him, so they'll just take what they can get right
yeah,
away.
I mean, they're gonna make him sell his houses and stuff.
That guy
I mean,
was
have you
like
s-
bouncing checks to hotels. Like, what is wrong
Have
with
you seen? Have you seen the houses he owns though? Like the two in Vancouver and the one in San Jose.
Yeah.
no, the one
They're
in
like
San Jose is probably
mansions. Oh, they're mansions. The two in Vancouver are even nicer, believe it or not,
beautiful. I'm actually not surprised. That's probably
because it's cheaper.
It's also probably like his.
It's where he
is that
lives,
he's
yeah.
from?
Yeah. So one's like his house, and then he owns like a lake house or something, like a beach house, and the things. They're both gorgeous. They're like these villas on like with gates and like they're huge. And it's like, wow, I wonder how you ended up $26 million in debt.
They really ought to just start making his checks out to whoever his dead owners
To
are.
the Sands, yeah, to like the Sands Hotel or whatever, the Mirage. Checks payable to the order of the Mirage Hotel, because we all know he's just gonna go and spend it there anyway.
The Bellagio.
Yeah, bro.
Anything last minute you want to talk about, Tim?
I'd like to say that I won in fantasy last week because I'm a better player than Chris. I'm gonna win this week because I'm a better player than Jeremy. I will come back and win the league because I'm a better player than everybody. About what it is. I was done.
Full disclosure, Tim used like 18 more starts than Chris did, but we don't have to talk about that.
Win's win. You don't know anything about it. You don't even know about it. It's hard grind, sweating, tears. Right here in the iron, grinding.
All right, that's gonna wrap it up for this week's episode.
Cheers.
Don't really have a plan for next week's episode. Just gonna be whatever the NHL throws at us. So I want to thank you guys for watching. I want to thank David Backus for being the first multi-award winner on the Lighting Lamp podcast. Congratulations! And
You're welcome, David.
we'll see you guys again next time.